In 1665, a small village in England made a decision so terrifying that it would change history forever. When a deadly disease arrived at their doorstep, the people of this town did something unimaginable. They locked themselves away from the entire world. No one was allowed in, no one was allowed out, and for many, this village would become their grave. This is the story of Eyam, the town that chose sacrifice over survival. Nestled deep within the rolling hills of Derbyshire, England, Eyam looked like the perfect countryside escape. Stone cottages stood quietly along narrow paths. Smoke drifted gently from chimneys, and life moved at a slow, comforting pace. Neighbors trusted each other. Children played freely in the open air. Nothing ever seemed to change. It was the kind of place where the outside world felt very far away. But in the summer of 1665, something invisible was already on its way to the village. Something deadly. It arrived without warning, without sound, and once it entered Eyam, nothing would ever be the same again. The nightmare began with a simple delivery. A parcel of cloth had been sent from London, a city already collapsing under the weight of a horrifying outbreak known as the Great Plague. At the time, no one understood how the disease truly spread. There were no antibiotics, no modern medicine, no real protection. Hidden deep within the folds of that damp fabric, infected fleas waited silently. The village tailor received the package and began working with the material immediately, unaware he was handling death itself. Within days, his assistant fell violently ill. First came the fever, then the shivering, then the unbearable exhaustion. Soon, painful black swellings appeared across his body. People didn't yet know it, but these dark marks were a signature of the bubonic plague, one of the deadliest diseases in human history. He died shortly after. Then another villager fell sick, then another, then another. Fear began spreading faster than the infection itself. At first, people hoped it was just a passing illness, but hope is fragile, and the plague was relentless. Families watched in horror as loved ones who seemed perfectly healthy in the morning were gone within days. The village doctor could do nothing. Prayers filled the air. Church bells rang far too often. Many believed the disease was a punishment from God. Others whispered that the very air had become poisonous. Panic slowly took hold of Eyam. Some villagers began thinking about escape, because if they could just leave, they might survive. But survival for Eyam could mean destruction for everyone else. And soon the leaders of the village realized something terrifying. If even a few infected people fled, the plague could spread across the countryside, reaching towns, then cities, killing thousands who had never even heard of Eyam. A choice had to be made: run and possibly carry death with them, or stay and face it alone. In a moment that would echo through history, the village made its decision. They would quarantine themselves, voluntarily. The borders of Eyam were clearly marked with stones placed along the outer roads. From that point forward, no one was allowed to cross them, not even to save their own life. Nearby communities, terrified yet compassionate, agreed to leave food at designated boundary points. In return, the villagers placed coins into holes filled with vinegar, believing the acidic liquid might cleanse the money of infection. Distance became their only defense. Imagine knowing the world was just beyond those hills, freedom only a short walk away, yet choosing not to take another step. It was an act of courage almost impossible to comprehend. As weeks turned into months, Eyam transformed into something unrecognizable. The cheerful sounds of daily life faded, replaced by an overwhelming silence. Doors remained shut, curtains never opened. The village pathways grew empty. Death was no longer shocking, it became routine. Entire households vanished within days. Graves multiplied so quickly that traditional burial practices became impossible. With so many gone, villagers were forced to bury their own loved ones. No ceremonies, no gatherings, no final embraces, just quiet goodbyes spoken into the wind. One story still chills historians today. Elizabeth Hancock lost her husband and 6 of her children, all within a single week. Alone, she carried their bodies to burial sites herself. No one could help her. Getting close meant risking infection. Yet somehow, she survived. Her resilience became a haunting symbol of the village's strength. By the height of the outbreak, nearly half of Eyam's population had perished. The air that once carried laughter now carried only grief. And still, no one crossed the boundary stones. For more than a year, the village remained sealed off from humanity. Seasons changed, winter passed, spring returned, and slowly the deaths began to decline. The plague was finally loosening its grip. Exhausted, heartbroken, but unbroken, the survivors stepped cautiously into a world that had continued without them. Their sacrifice had worked. The infection had not spread deeply into neighboring regions. Countless lives were spared because Eyam chose containment over escape. Most of the people saved would never know the names or the faces of those who protected them. Today, Eyam still stands. At first glance, it looks peaceful, even beautiful. Visitors walk the same narrow lanes, pass the same cottages, and see the very fields where boundary stones warned the world to stay away. But many who travel there describe a strange feeling, a heaviness in the silence, as if history never truly left. Eyam is no longer known as a place of tragedy alone. It is remembered as a place of extraordinary courage, a village that understood something profound, that sometimes survival is not the greatest act of humanity. Sometimes sacrifice is. So ask yourself, if you knew escaping would save your life, but staying might save thousands of strangers, what would you choose? In 1665, the people of Eyam made their choice. They faced the darkness so others would never have to. And because of that decision, this small English village earned a permanent place in history, not as the town that died, but as the town that saved the world around it. Subscribe for more true stories that prove reality can be far more terrifying than fiction.